So, this is another Alexless episode. She's still on her hiatus for the time being, but in the meantime, I'm still bringing on a few different guests to kind of keep the show going as it was. And for this one, I actually brought on my co-host from my other show, the 3DO Experience. Thrak, how you doing?
Hey, I'm back. I'm not dead, I swear. Well, I've been busy doing other things, but I'm back. It's great to be back. The school stuff it's starting to wind down. So I have like
That's
maybe a
good.
week. I have maybe a week and a half. I probably 2 weeks of work left to do, and then I'll have a month off, which will be nice. So and the 3DO show is resuming soon, if anybody's curious. But yeah, I'm good. I just set up my new TV, a new TV stand, because it's around that Black Friday time where it's like, oh, they're you might as well get them since they're on sale. And my dad's had went out, and we tried to fix it, but it was kind of an issue. So they found a really nice one, and I was like, hey, if they have two, give me one. So they got me one, and then it wouldn't fit on the stand I already had, so I had to get a whole new stand, which they got me as like a early Christmas present. So and everything's set up. The 3DO is in there. So
Nice.
but I need to get one of those like AV splitters because it only has one set. I'm glad it has a set of AV cables. I wasn't sure if it would have one, but it has one set. And currently the Wii is in those. But if I can get a splitter for just the Wii and the 3DO, I'd be fine. But yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying I am doing okay.
That's good. Yeah, 3DO should be coming back. Ironically, by the time this episode comes out, it probably already will be back, just considering how my backlog is going with the podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Which is funny because I think the last time you were on GNC, we announced the 3DO Experience, and that episode came out after the show already came back. So it was like, it's here.
Yeah, we haven't recorded the next one yet, so.
That should be soon.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
soon.
I've been busy with doing a lot of guest appearances as well, so those have been fun.
Yeah, I haven't really done a whole lot. I've been starting more shows because now I do 3 of them, and it's fun.
You're bringing it upon yourself, man.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's been a little kind of wrench here and there because Alex had to take her leave for a little while. Honestly, it was good timing that it was also while 3DO was down, so it gave me time to actually like catch up on other things. But thankfully, everything's calming down. Alex should be back probably within, I'm hoping maybe like 2 more episodes after this one comes, and then she'll be back on for the rest of the year, and we can go back. What's up?
No, go ahead.
I was just yeah, so hopefully by next couple of weeks everything should be back to normal.
Yeah, she needed a long nap.
Yeah, she was just overstressed with life and work and dancing and all that stuff, and she just really needed to step away for a couple. Basically, she needed November off. So,
girl, I can relate.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I've been playing the not Mario and Luigi, the Super Mario RPG remake, and
nice. How is it?
It is the most faithful remake I think I've ever played.
Do you know who made it?
It's Artsy Pazza, I think it's there to call it's the company that did.
I call them Arty Piazza.
Yeah,
they did the DS Dragon Quest remakes, which are very good.
Yeah, they haven't done a lot of original stuff, but they're all their ports are very good, and remakes are very well done.
They remind me of M2 a little bit. Just a little bit.
M2 and Blue Point Games are like probably the biggest ones I can think of.
Blue Point, Digital Eclipse, but they're more on like the Western side.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've currently been playing the Dead Space remake.
Oh, nice.
And it is very good. I played a bit of the original back in the day, but I never played a huge amount of it. And then the remake came out on Game Pass. What was it, like October, I think. So I was like, of course I'm going to download and play this because I don't need to buy EA games anymore since I have Game Pass. But I'm in chapter 7, I think, and it is very, very good. I'm trying to like launch the SOS beacon. I just need to like attach it to like the asteroid and send it off. I think is what I have to do.
Nice.
And yeah, it is fantastic. And what's cool is there's no load screens anymore. So
Oh,
it's
that's cool.
much more open ended. Like it's borderline Metroidvania. I know some people might not like I say that, but there's a lot of backtracking, like a lot. And then when you get like the higher security clearances, you can unlock more stuff as you go. But make sure you stomp all those dead bodies because you'll go by them like a handful of times, nothing. And then the one time you go by and don't notice it is when it attacks you.
Yeah.
But it's great.
It's funny. I forgot how short of an RPG Mario RPG actually was because I'm already like I already have like 5 of the 7 stars, and like I feel like I've only been playing for like 5 hours. It's going by quick.
Yeah, because I forget which Discord. It might be Dave's from Tales of the Backlog. Like some people have already beat it, and their time was like 13 hours or something like that. So yeah, I definitely want to get to it, but I've just been so busy with everything that at this point I might as well just say like if somebody's like, "Oh, what do you want for Christmas?" I'm like, just give me that. I'll just let them buy it for me because we're just at that point. So
Yeah. I will say it is definitely worth it. It actually gave me a new appreciation for that game because I used to think it was kind of overrated. And playing it now, I'm like, no, it deserves its praise, honestly.
what made you think it was overrated?
Um, the people who it's not so much the game itself; it's more the people who would like act like it was like this like untouchable like pillar of gaming, and they kind of acted like Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi were always trying to live up to it, and I'm always like, they kind of. I was always on the side. Oh,
Sorry, hold on. Oh, sorry about that. Just people banging at my door.
no worries.
Sorry about that. Cut.
I'll just note. I'll make sure to note 7 minutes in. That should
All
be
right.
good.
Oh, I don't have a timer on mine.
So the timer's in the corner. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense the way they do it. I just have a timer in my background that I use just to keep track.
Gotcha.
It happens every now and then, but yeah, I'll mark that 7 minutes. Okay. So we were talking.
Mario
Yeah, so
RPG.
what I was saying is like there was a big subset who would like they kind of would act like Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi just like could never live up to like what Mario RPG was, and like I played the original back in the day and I thought it was good, but I was like I always thought Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga in particular did so much more. And like Paper Mario, Paper Mario also managed to stand on its own. It was just kind of me, like someone who didn't grow up with it, probably just looking at it from a different angle.
I think it has a lot to do with the Square connection as well, because Square fans are kind of crazy, so they tend to like, especially if you think about the Super Nintendo era, they were cranking out bangers. Well, at least SquareSoft was cranking out bangers. So I kind of get it. And I first played it on the Wii through the Virtual Console. In fact, the Wii I have over there, it still has it in it. And I played a lot of that game. And I honestly, I don't know why I never beat it because I was really into it and got all the members of the party and I was getting pretty close to the end. I might have had 5 or 6 stars by that point, and I just stopped playing it. I have no idea why. It's just one of those things, But yeah, I think like the Mario and Luigi games and the Paper Mario games are also really good, but they all share similar DNA. It's just
They do.
like Super Mario RPG is like the Super Nintendo Square-y one. Paper Mario has that intelligent systems thing, and then Mario and Luigi, like you can tell who made them. They have their like trademark.
Well, what's fun about Mario and Luigi was a lot of Alpha Dream actually came from Square, and they were a lot of people that worked on Mario RPG. So,
and that makes sense considering how the game is structured, and like Superstar Saga definitely feels like more of a spiritual successor to Mario RPG than say Paper Mario. Whereas Paper Mario feels like it's trying to be its own thing.
Yeah, that's also why Yoko Shinomura does the soundtrack for both because they brought her over as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
The remixes of her songs on the remake are so good. Like when I got to Forest Maze, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. It never gets old. It never gets old.
Me and a coworker, we just hum that to each other all the time. Like we'll talk about, like one of us will bring up Mario RPG and the other will just start going,
See, I always get the Chris Niosi song that he wrote like way back in the day.
Oh yeah, I mean they're all fantastic. So
Mm.
yeah, it is a very good game. Hopefully, I'll get to play it sometime next year, or maybe when I get it for Christmas, I'll sit here and play it. I have no idea.
No, 100%. But anyways, so I guess transitioning now into our topic for this episode. So
Yeah,
we are the gaming and collecting podcast. I know the collecting part has kind of been a running joke since the podcast started. Um, but recently we did a episode a couple months ago where we had James from Games with John and James on, and we decided to actually sit down and talk about collecting stories and experiences over the years. And me and Alex thought that went so well that we were going to make this a continuous, like, kind of thing going forward and actually make the gaming collecting podcast have something to do with collecting in a sense. So I was talking to Thrak, and we had mentioned we wanted to do a collecting episode way back. I think before we even started doing 3DO.
yeah,
And I think timing came up good where Alex was away. I needed content, and we wanted to get 3DO going again. So we figured we'd do this as just kind of a icebreaker to just kind of get back into the swing of things. So
you
we're gonna
called the
do
content goblin. The content goblin appears. That's me.
yep. It's nice because I have other co-hosts I can just reach out to and be like, hey, do me a solid over here.
Do you want to talk about the DS? Sure, sure.
Yeah.
But we're
But
not here to talk about the DS. We're going to talk about the superior handheld machine. Yeah, I said it. I fucking said it. I'll say it again.
so the previous collecting stories was more general collecting. For this one, we're actually going to be focusing specifically on collecting for the Game Boy Advance. And that to me
Yeah.
is honestly one of the more fascinating systems to collect for because I feel like people collect for it, but they don't really, it's not like one of the ones that you'll see like people going crazy about, like, look at my GBA collections. It's more kind of the people that collect for it, they really like enjoy it, but a lot of people, it's kind of like this system that kind of just exists.
Yeah, because GBA exists in like that weird middle ground because I think people are very nostalgic for the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, right? For, Pokemon and everything.
Yep.
And then the GBA, because if you think about it, it only had 3 years on the market by itself.
Yeah, because it
2001
was
to
only
2004, I think, is when the DS came out.
yes, it was like a really short period. Like I remember
Mm-hmm.
I had the wide GBA for like a year, and then the SP was already out, so I upgraded to the SP.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of just became my default GBA for years until I
Yeah.
got the DS Lite.
Yeah. I was resistant to the DS for a long time because I loved the GBA to death. I remember um, when it came out, one of the kids that my mom babysat for, she had an original DS with, I think it was Super Mario Advance, SpongeBob SquarePants, Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, and like Tom and Jerry and the Infernal Escape. I think those are the three games I remember, and we used to like just sit on the couch, just like, trading back and forth, just playing the games and just loving it. And it's so funny to think back then that we just didn't think about or complain about it not having a light, like a lit screen,
Yeah,
because the original GBA doesn't have one.
we've been
We didn't think
spoiled.
about it.
We've been
Oh god, yeah.
so spoiled. Like I boot up my my wide GBA or even my Game Boy Color every now and then. I'm just like, how did we live? Like, how did we
Yeah,
deal with this?
especially when the SP that I'm holding, it is a modded SP with an IPS screen in it. So if I turn it on, it's a real nice screen. It's one of those that has like the 10 brightness adjustments. Like if I get
Nice.
it to the darkest one, you can kind of see. It
Like I
is, yeah, yeah, these things are super nice. But even if you get like say an AGS 101, the second edition, or the micro, like those screens
my
are still solid by today's
the
standards.
the micro I think has arguably the nicest game, like default Game Boy Advance screen there
Yeah,
is. The only problem is the
yeah.
thing's microscopic.
You can't see it, but it's over there. Do you want me to grab it?
Nah, it's all right.
Okay.
I'll take your word for it.
Oh yeah, I have one up there ish. It's off screen, but I have an original model
Mhm.
that has an e-reader in it.
Oh,
A
nice.
first edition SP that has one of those wireless adapters attached to it.
Oh, cool.
The second version of the SP, the AGS 101, that the R button kind of broke on me, and I need to. I probably can fix it, but I don't know. And then the micro has the same issue. The R button just like kind of gave out on me, which really sucks because I liked playing the micro quite a bit. Because yes, it is small, but I have kind of smaller hands, so it kind of fit me really nice, and it's so easy to just slip it in the pocket and just kind of take it with you wherever. It's
It
very
is a
very nice.
very, very nice, like high quality. Honestly, to me, it's like one of the nicest things Nintendo's ever made, but it's also like one of the most like confusing like things Nintendo's ever made because the DS was already out at that point. And I figured it was kind of like one of those things where it was like, who asked for this?
It's like it's their iPod Nano. You know
Yeah,
what I
the
mean?
marketing for that thing was very Apple-ish.
Yeah. But you have to think I think the micro kind of sits with like the NES Model 2, the top loader, the SNES 2, like the Wii Mini, like these just like random redesigns they would do, or even say like, the Game Boy Pocket, like these kind of random sort of just revisions of the originals that they would do like really late. Like I think they just did it just to do it. You know what I mean? And sometimes they were really nice, and then other times they were just completely unnecessary. So,
Mm.
but I think the micro, for what it is, it's very nice. Like
That's actually
if there was like, I think one of the Amber Nicks is like modeled after the Famicom micro, which is like
so.
$200 now.
I was going to say that's one of my biggest collecting regrets is so I have a micro. I've got a nice like silver one. Um,
hmm
I
Mine's
actually
mine has the black faceplate.
I have the black faceplate. I the screen on it is kind of scuffed, so I just keep the silver one in. But what I was going to say though, one of my biggest collecting regrets was I had a chance to get one of those nice Famicom styled ones for like $70. Like this was back in 2017, I want to say.
Yeah,
Um,
that's when GBA was still relatively cheap, I think.
I don't know if I made the right choice or not, but I passed it up for a copy of Shining the Holy Ark for Saturn. So
That's a great game.
it is, and I'm kind of sitting here thinking like I look at the price of that game now compared to the price of that Famicom Micro, and in reality, Shining the Holy Ark hasn't gone up that much in
No.
comparison, and the Micro is now like $200, and I'm like, I mean, micros in general are just like expensive for whatever reason.
Well, it's because they sold like 1 million of them, maybe,
Yeah,
if
and
that.
wasn't a lot made.
Yeah, yeah. So like the one I have, I got for a pretty good price, and it's really dumb that it like the R button is just completely. I've tried to fix it, and it just doesn't work anymore. And I've thought about maybe like trying to get like a broken micro that has like a working R button and like swap shit out, but it's like, do I really want to do all that work?
Yeah,
Like I'll probably just keep it as like a collector's piece kind of thing, and just use like this modded SP as my sort of player one. But I also have there's this cool aftermarket device called the Epilogue Operator,
mhm.
which in fact I think I have it right here. Yeah. Here it is. This little guy that
Oh,
you can
okay.
just, yeah, it's essentially a Game Boy Advance like cartridge slot that you just kind of plug into your computer. So like if I take this GBA cart that is being used, and I could just, pop the thing in,
Oh,
and you
nice.
can just, yeah, and it rips the ROM file onto your computer, and you can play it right there. But it has a really cool like save transfer feature as well. So you can save the file, take your save file and throw it back onto the cart, so you can go portable with your GBA and then bring it home. It's kind of almost Switch like in that
Well,
regard.
that's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, it
Um,
helps because I beat a couple games on this like that.
so it's kind of funny. You mentioned the e-reader earlier. Probably one of
Oh yeah,
the most fascinating things Nintendo ever came out with that not a lot of people used, not a lot of people really got the full value of, but
I have.
it's kind of one of those things that I see one and I'm always like, oh, an e-reader, I remember that. Uh,
Yeah, they're dirt cheap. They're like
oh yeah,
what, 10-20 bucks at most.
Nintendo made hundreds, like millions of these things, and they didn't
Oh yeah.
sell very well because a lot of people just didn't buy the concept, I guess.
Well,
Um,
I think it was them trying to do what is it? Like DLC, you know what I mean?
I think another
But
thing,
they didn't have the tech for it yet, at least
I
for portable consoles.
I think another thing that happened too. this specifically applies to me because I didn't own a GameCube at the time, but a lot of the cards were designed to work with GameCube stuff. And me being a PlayStation 2 owner, it was kind of like I'd get like a bunch of cards. I'd be like, oh, I can't do anything with these because they're meant to work with GameCube games.
Yeah.
Darn.
Though I do have, again, you can't see it off camera. I have a set of the Mario Advance 4 cards.
Those are the
like
ones that are worth getting.
well, I bought the first set, like it was sealed in the box. I didn't spend that much money on it. I really didn't. I'd have to look at the eBay listing to see what I paid for it, but I don't remember it being that much. And then me being me, I carefully opened it. So it's like it's not like if I like how I have it set, you wouldn't think it's open. But
Yeah.
I opened them and took the cards out because I wanted to try the cards. Because yeah, they have like the power up cards and all that and the item cards. But what people want are those level cards.
Mm.
And so getting the level cards in Mario Advance 4, which is the version of Super Mario Brothers 3 for the GBA, my favorite version of Mario 3 as well, is a pain in the ass because
Yeah.
you need 2 GBAs. You need one with the e-reader in it, and then the other with the copy of the game in it. And you use the GBA link cable that you'd use for like multiplayer or trading Pokemon or whatever. And then on the one, so you go into Mario Advance 4 and you go to like, oh, I want to use the e-reader. And they're like, oh, we need to sense it or whatever. And then you scan the card in the other one. And then it's slowly, you can almost see like the data going from the cable
Yep.
if you look hard enough. And then it's like, oh, here you go. But the first level set is only like the first 5 levels or something. It doesn't give you that many because they only did, I think it was 2 sets here. And then they
Yep.
did a handful of more sets out in Japan. But the GBA cart can't hold all the levels anyways.
Yeah.
So when Mario Advance 4 came to the Wii U Virtual Console, they, as a bonus, they threw in all the e-reader levels. And
I want to
thankfully,
say those are in the Switch service as well.
yes.
Okay.
When they threw it in the NSO, they also were like, "Oh, here's all the e-reader levels." Thank God. I've slowly been working my way through them because a lot of them are like levels from like Mario 1 or Mario World, but kind of like redone. And there are some like newer kind of challenge levels. Like there's one that's it's a vertical stage, but it's all like the little music note bouncy blocks, and you have to try to
Yep.
keep bouncing your way up. And they are very hard and challenging. But I like when Mario gets really hard because it doesn't happen that often. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it
Is
is using the e-reader is funky and stupid, and I totally get why it wasn't a success. But for a weirdo GBA collector like myself, it was really neat to have that experience.
to me like the sound that like haunts my like dreams whenever I think of the e-reader will forever be scan the card and just read error. Just, I
It,
hear that in my sleep.
it reminds me of when you're at the store and you try to use your credit card and you put it in like the chip and it goes like bam, bam, bam. You have to take it out because you have to be very specific with how you put the chip
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just funny shit like that. But another closing thing on the e-reader before we move on, it's almost compatible with every GBA compatible device.
Yeah. It's the only one it's not compatible with, obviously, is the micro.
No, it
Because,
actually it works.
oh, yeah, but it just looks so fucking
Well,
weird.
it looks dumb, but it does work. The
Yeah.
only
The e
system
reader
that
is bigger than the micro.
yeah, it's great. I love doing that just for like the look at
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Um,
If we were doing a video podcast, I would show you all just to show you how fucking stupid this is.
I did a post on my Instagram blog like years ago, like chronicling all the different systems it works with. The only one it does not work with, I discovered, is the original DS, and it's all because of the stupid pass-through port thing.
Oh, okay. And because it's like, 'cause I remember it was like really like the original DS was like fat. It was a fat
It's
boy.
it's very thick, and
Oh yeah.
because it's thick, you can't get that stupid pass-through port thing to fit. So theoretically, if you cut that off, because it's kind of useless anyways, depending on which version
Yeah.
of the system you're using.
Yeah, because you only have to plug it into because it fits perfectly into the original GBA.
Yes, all
Like
the
that
other ones,
little,
it's useless,
yeah,
basically.
it just sits there.
If you cut it off and plug it in, it works, but like at that point, just just get like a DS Lite or get a GBA. Like, there's no reason for it.
Yeah. Now, if you could get it compatible with the DSi, that would be very impressive.
Yeah, I think at that point you'd have to just do some real like portable surgery. So,
Get out the soldering iron, kids.
but I guess now moving into questions, like, what was your first GBA game?
It was probably Super Mario Advance, which was the remake of Super Mario Brothers 2. But of course, I didn't know that at the time. And I remember as a kid really liking it but I had that same experience I think most people had with Mario 2, which is like, oh, this game's really cool, but it's like, it's very different. Like, I can't jump on enemies. I have to pick stuff up. And in Mario Advance, Mario doesn't shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
This was the era where Nintendo was obsessed with voice acting in like GBA games like crazy. We can barely get voice acting in Switch games, but goddamn, like all these GBA games, they like Charles Martinet, they just let him riff,
yeah.
and they're
So
still stuck in my head, like the Lucky and all that shit.
lucky.
Yeah,
For me, it's funny because speaking of voices, one of the things about that game that confused me as a kid, because I didn't grow up with an NES, so I knew nothing about like the classic Mario games at the time.
yeah,
When you start up that game, it's Super Mario Advance, but then you get to the title screen, it's like Super Mario 2, and it's like, huh? I got very
yeah,
confused at
yeah,
the time.
yeah,
Even
for
though
sure.
I had Mario Deluxe on the Game Boy Color, I figured I should have thought like maybe that was the first one and then this was two, which technically was I was on the right track as a kid. But,
Yeah, but then Nintendo lost the track as well.
oh yeah,
Because
completely.
then they jumped to World, and then Yoshi's Island, then went back to 3. Doesn't
That's
make any
still
sense.
my favorite video game title ever is still Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Brothers 3 E for the e-reader version.
Yeah, featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series. Um, yeah, that's probably the one. But like the other two games I had mentioned, the SpongeBob and the Tom and Jerry game, those were frequent ones, and I really liked the GBA at the time. And I remember it must have been like 03 ish when I got my SP for Christmas, or not Christmas, it was my birthday. And the games, I got a couple games with it. I remember I got the Incredible Hulk GBA game,
Hmm.
which I have in box over there. In fact, I rebought it sealed and I opened it. I remember getting that. I think there's another game or two. Oh, Justice League and Justice for All. I had that game. Soft spot for that game. Played it a lot. And then also I got the game that is kind of the bane of my existence, which is Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Because
The opening cutscene for that game is still one of the most impressive things.
oh yeah, for sure. And I remember because I first heard about Kingdom Hearts on the bus, where this one girl was like, "Oh, there's this like real cool game called Kingdom Hearts. You beat shit up with a giant key." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds awesome, right?" And then, but I didn't have a PS2 at the time, so I was like, when I saw there was one for the Game Boy, I was just like, "Oh, I want that one," you know. And I got it. I should have kept it in box, but you know, you don't think about that stuff as a kid. But
Oh,
I got it, and then I started playing it, and everything was fine until I'm like, what are the cards? Why do I need like cards for attacking? And like, it turned me off of the game, to be honest. And I haven't played much of it since, but I do have it. And when I eventually get into that Kingdom Hearts kick, because one of these days I'll just say fuck it and play through them. Chain of Memory, I'm not playing the PS2 version. I've tried Rechain of Memories. Terrible. Hate it with a burning passion. I'm
it,
like,
it's
I'll just
like
play the GBA version.
it's like a nice idea, but I think the sprite it's such a lifeless game because it's clearly just using original assets.
Yeah.
The GBA one just looks so nice. Those are
Oh
such
yeah.
pretty sprites.
Oh, those sprites are fantastic. Nice and big, and the game operates almost kind of like a Tales of game because you just have like the overworld running around, and then you go into the fights, and that's kind of a
Yeah.
separate area with action combat. But Tales of was smart enough not to have cards because I just don't like cards in video games. It's just, to me, I just find it's like a useless mechanic that just makes things more complicated than it should be, in my opinion.
I mean, I get it at the time because that's when like Yu-Gi-Oh was huge, and they were probably just trying to appeal to that. But
I guess.
it makes the game stick out like a sore thumb.
Oh god, yeah. Because none of the
Um,
other games even bothered.
yeah. So for me, my first GBA game, so similar to how like when I got my Game Boy Color, I had Mario Deluxe and Clax, and I picked Clax first because kids.
I mean, it's called Clax. You got to find out what that is.
It had a pink hand on the cover. I just had to know. Um,
It's better than the pink eye on the cover.
yeah. So for GBA, I had a similar experience where I actually had my first two games were Mario Advance, and then I had Iridian 3D. And
Oh, I think I have that one.
I was attracted to the 3D in the title because I was trying to get that 3D experience on a handheld kick. So I booted it up, and that ended up being my first GBA game, and it was a pretty good like third person 3D like Star Fox-ish shoot 'em up.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, it's
It's not
nothing
bad.
it's nothing remarkable, but it was fun enough for what it was. I was terrible at it as a 6-year-old at the time. Um, it had a sequel too, but the sequel decided just to make it a side scrolling shooter, which isn't nearly as fun.
It's boring. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
No, it's
Iridian
fun.
3D though, I recommend that one.
Oh
And then I
yeah.
played Mario Advance, and then the rest was history from there.
Oh yeah. Oh, I also got Link to the Past. That was the other game I got. Link
Oh,
to
that
the
was the
Past.
other game with the voice acting that was unnecessary.
And it's all like the Ocarina of Time shit, but
Yep.
that is the version of Link to the Past I beat when I beat Link to the Past for the first time a couple years ago. You know, I was like, well, I could boot up the Super Nintendo version, but I'm like, but I still have the GBA version, and that's like it's the same copy I've had as a kid, and I'm like, no, I want to play that version because that's the version I grew up playing,
Yeah.
and that's the version I beat, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it has some screen crunch, but other than that, it's perfectly fine, and I
I
beat it no
mean,
problem.
most GBA games, because the GBA has a lot of Super Nintendo ports, and they
Oh
all
yeah,
do suffer from screen crunch to a degree. Ironically, I think the GBA was around the point where they really started figuring it out, depending on the game. Because one of the games that I really loved was Donkey Kong Country on GBA. That was my first experience with the Donkey Kong Country series, and I played the hell out of that game back in the day.
yeah. I have the third one on GBA, and that's how I've beaten DKC 3 was that version. Yeah, I didn't have the other two. I've been meaning to get the other two. Um, and yeah, it's funny the whole portable Super Nintendo thing because the GBA, I think, in most ways, is more powerful than the Super Nintendo.
Every
Its only real issue is the audio.
Yeah, its sound card was like
It doesn't have a sound card. Like
it
all
it has a thing in there that's kind of a sound card, but it's not like what the Super Nintendo had.
Yeah, because from what I remember reading, most of the sound and the music is done like directly from like the CPU. Like it's directly doing it, and that's why most of it sounds really compressed and bit
Yeah,
crunched. And just for most people, it sounds really bad, and a lot of the times it does. But again, maybe it's just like a childhood nostalgia thing. I don't mind it that much, but of course, it takes like a talented composer to really make it work. Like
there are some
say
phenomenal GBA soundtracks.
like in my opinion, I'd say Advance Wars 1
Mhm.
has a fantastic GBA soundtrack and like the crunchy sound they play into it. Like the music just sounds perfect for that, you know.
Yeah, like even the Donkey Kong Country games, I think sound really good. Like those are some
Yeah.
of the rare Super Nintendo. Because honestly, the biggest offenders to poor GBA sound was a lot of the Super Nintendo ports.
Yeah.
Depending on who ported them over, tended to have pretty rough sound effects. I know Link to the Past was a little iffy, depending on who you ask. I never personally had a big issue with it, but I know
Yeah.
some people did.
And then you have the two Metroid games on here, and both those soundtracks are fantastic.
Oh yeah,
Especially Zero Missions. Zero Missions is a huge favorite of mine from a soundtrack perspective.
it's kind of funny because I believe the story is the reason why they couldn't use the Super Nintendo sound card is because Sony made it and Sony was just being bitter.
Yeah, I could see that.
That's the story I've heard. There's no guarantee that's true because people like to make up history with these things, but
Oh
I,
yeah.
I I'm a believer that Sony probably said no because they were still mad about
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of revisionist history in video gaming, especially when it comes to like Nintendo.
Yeah.
So I totally understand.
But another other soundtracks in particular that I come off the top of the head for me are like Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, of course.
Oh yeah.
Yoko Shinomura just knows what she's doing. I'm pretty sure she did. I'm pretty sure she
I think
also
about
did.
that battle theme lives rent free in my head.
Oh yeah, so one of the best battle systems in an RPG, in my opinion, still to this day.
It's pretty good.
Even the Final Fantasy like advanced ports, the soundtracks weren't that bad. Like they
Oh
did.
no. I have them all. I have all the Final Fantasies for GBA. And yeah, they all sound really good. Though the most I've played of is 4. And yeah, 4 sounds really good. But again, I think what helps with the GBA sound is like working with those limitations and having, as you said, a talented composer, like being able to work around it. Because then there's like probably a metric ton of GBA games that just sound like shit. But to be fair, this is kind of that era where a lot of companies were just making really cheap like 2D games and just kind of dumping them on the GBA. Like this is like weirdly like a pre-Flash era, because there's quite a few GBA games that I have and I've played that I'm like, this is like, I would just play this on addictinggames.com. Like I don't need to be playing this on a Nintendo console.
Yeah.
But it was a different time.
Like there's a to me, like one of the biggest hidden gems on the GBA that inherently doesn't sound like a game that you think would be like super good is The Sims Busting Out. Because I think we've talked about it in the past. For whatever reason, rather than trying to port a Sims game to GBA, which would have been stupid and not worked, period, they decided to just make it an RPG. And it's surprisingly
a story-driven RPG of all things.
Yeah. And it's surprisingly really fun. And I actually brought up Sims Busting Out because I think that's one of the few games that like has a soundtrack that's like unironically really good for GBA standards. Like the composer, I think his name is Ian Stockett. He did a ton of licensed games back in the day. Like he did all the GBA Sims games, but like he really knew how to work with what the GBA could do sound wise, and like made some pretty good scores.
Yeah, fantastic, man. Yeah, I haven't played The Sims Busting Out. I have, was it Sims 2? I have that one.
So there's 3 of them. There's Sims Busting Out, its direct sequel, Herb Sims in the City, and then Sims 2 is tangentially connected. They're not direct sequels, but they're sort of the same universe.
No Sims 2 Pets?
I mean, that exists, but it's a completely different game.
Okay. Yeah.
So what would you say is your most valuable GBA game?
Apparently, in fact, it's one of my box games. I'm going to grab it real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
Because, well, this is according to pricecharting.com, looking at my collection. The most expensive one I have is Advanced Guardian Heroes, complete in-box, everything. And I did not pay that much for it. Now it's like, I think it goes for like borderline $100. And I did not spend $100 on this game. I can't remember what I spent on it. In fact, funnily enough, I was a while ago on the GBA subreddit, and some guy was asking if somebody had the Advanced Guardian Heroes manual. And I was like, oh, I do. And he said, could you like scan it for me? I'm like doing a video on YouTube about it. And so I did my best to scan them and gave them to him to use. I don't know if he used them for the video, but I can't remember what the name of his channel is, but it's like a GBA hidden gems type of channel. And I tried to do some stuff with them, but like I guess it never really happened, I guess. So I mean, if he ends up watching this, he knows who he is. He'll remember this. But yeah, that was me. Hi. So, but yeah, I have this guy here. And then I also have, it's loose, but I have a Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, which is obviously a pricey one. I have Wario Land Twisted right there. It's the custom, and I have the custom game case for it.
Nice.
which is cool because they made like a giant one for like say the Game Boy camera and everything, and they're like, oh, we'll do one for WarioWare Twisted. So I went ahead and grabbed it, and they give you the yellow option. I had to
Oh,
go with the
nice.
yellow one, right? And I do the black spine. It's a look at that giant ass spine. Because for those who don't know, there's this website called I think it's Custom Game Cases, and they make custom game cases essentially. For they started doing mainly like Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, because most people will just have like the cartridges, because cardboard boxes are terrible.
Yeah.
So, and they've expanded greatly. They do like Virtual Boy cases, NES cases, Super Nintendo. They do a lot. Like customgamecases.com, they're fantastic. Good customer support, everything like that. And their scans are also pretty good
Yeah.
for
No, that
the
looks pretty
cover.
good.
Yeah, and then you can see the cart.
Yeah, that big chunky ass thing.
Oh yeah, but it works, and it's my favorite WarioWare game. It's so much fun, and it's so like intuitive to play because you don't have to push. You rarely ever like push a button. You just move it because it has a giant gyroscope on it. So, which is really cool.
Does
But
it,
yeah,
it did they include the programming for if you're using the original GBA or the SP?
I believe so. Yeah, I think there's a option in the game to like, are you using it, which way or not?
Yeah, because
I think.
Yoshi Topsy Turvy I know had that as well.
Yeah, I've been meaning to grab that, and I still haven't got it yet. Like another one I want to get is Drill Dozer, but Drill Dozer is very expensive.
Because I know for a fact Kirby Tilt and Tumble on the original Game Boy that is unplayable on a GBA SP because it does not have the programming in it to determine the position of the cartridge in the system because it only knows it only recognizes it in like the way the Game Boy Color was, which is up. So if you're
Yeah,
trying to play it in an SP, everything's reversed because the game doesn't know.
yeah. Hold on, I'm looking. Um, hmm. If it has it, I don't know because I'm actually looking at the game right now. Because like the front cover shows like the SP.
Yeah, so I assume if anything, it's probably just programmed well enough that it just recognizes it. Honestly,
That would be my guess. Because then there's also like a button to center it as well, which is really nice.
they
But
probably
yeah.
just got better intuitive with that kind of stuff over
Oh
time.
yeah. In fact, what's interesting is I think it's IGN has a list of like top 50, 100, whatever GBA games, and number one is WarioWare Twisted.
I've heard it's like the hidden gem of like the WarioWare series.
It really is because everybody talks about the original, which I have, and then there was what was the Wii one? Shake It.
I think there was Shake It. I know Touched is
Yeah.
like the one that everyone
Oh
loves.
yeah, the DS one. The DS one was really good. Shake It on the Wii is also fantastic. But kind of after that is when most people stopped caring, and I haven't really bothered with the WarioWare series since. I just want a new Wario Land, man. That's
Yeah,
all
I
I want.
know. So for me, my most valuable GBA game. So for a loose game, my most valuable is Pocky and Rocky with Becky.
Oh,
I
that's a
got
pricey one.
I got it for $70 back in 2018. It's loose, so it's not ideal. I'd like a box. I might get a custom case for it just because I love that
Oh yeah.
series.
Oh yeah.
But
Custom. Yeah, and the custom cases are like $7-8 a piece.
yeah, that's not bad at
So
all.
oh yeah, they're great prices. But I recommend if you do them, just get like a whole bunch of them because you can get like free shipping, and I think they give you a slight discount if you buy like 5 or more in one go, kind of thing.
Yeah, I
So
have a few that I might do because I want to get like the Demi Kids games in box, the Fire
yeah.
Emblems. I was gonna say though, my other most valuable game is actually so this is a boxed copy I own. It's actually Aria of Sorrow. And the funniest part about my Aria of Sorrow story, I think I might have told you this in the past, but I got it back in 2012. Just a random Amazon purchase, no pictures at all. It was literally just it said Aria of Sorrow game condition used, and it was like $12. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? It arrives in
And
the mail, pristine in the box, and I was just like,
yeah,
okay.
that was pure luck on your part.
Yeah, that was like the luckiest thing. And I didn't even think of it at the time. And then I saw how much it's worth now. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, I've never played it, so I don't know what the deal is. Because right now on a price charting loose, it's $218.
Ari is
And
a
that,
really good Castlevania.
yeah. Oh, I was talking about Pocky and Rocky, but
Oh, Pocky
yeah,
Rock. Oh, that's a really good
yeah,
rail
yeah,
shooter.
yeah. Loose, it's like $200. Like complete in box, Aria of Sorrow is like hovering that $200 mark, but loose,
So,
it's about $80. And I
sorry, not rail,
spent,
not a
I
rail
s-
shooter. Shoot 'em up.
yeah, and I spent about just under 80 on Aria of Sorrow. So, but one thing you have to worry about with Aria of Sorrow and some other GBA games is the rise of reproductions. Like the repros
Yeah.
have really gone crazy on the GBA part. I mean, you have, of course, the elephant in the room, the Pokemon games. Those are always an issue, right? But I've seen it like with like the Castlevanias and like Donkey Kong Country and like GTA Advance and like Wario Land. Like there's quite a lot of repros. Even Doom, as I showed you my fake copy of the Doom port on here. Like they are running rampant right now
It's
through
got to be just a cost thing. They have to be the cheapest ones to reproduce right now.
yeah, I think so. And so it's like when you're if you're trying to collect for it and you see a price that's too good to be true, that's probably what it is. But most of
Yeah.
the time, sellers are good on that and will let you know that hey, they are reproductions. That they try to or like they'll say like oh like new or brand new or whatever. If you see that and it's just a loose cart, then yeah, you should know. Like there's certain language.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, with Aria of Sorrow, I was thankfully it was an official copy. Otherwise, I would have been very upset because it is a fantastic game.
I think I've only encountered one reproduction in my time, and it's my copy of Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland.
Ah, see, my copy is official and it doesn't save.
Hmm.
I don't know why. It's the only game I have, official game, that has issues saving. It's not a battery save or anything. It's like a friend of mine, they just gave it to me because they're like, I don't want this, you take it. And
Yeah.
it was very dirty and I cleaned it to the best of my ability and it turns on, it plays no problem, and but it just doesn't save. And it's like there's one specific pin that is very dirty that I can't clean, and I'm thinking, is that the pin that saves? But I don't know. So one day I said fuck it and just beat the whole thing in one sitting. Took me
Yeah.
like 3 hours. So I can
I
say
mean,
I beat it.
it's thankfully not that long of a game.
No, most
Um,
GBA games aren't that long.
See, what tipped me off that my copy was fake was when it arrived, it didn't have an ESRB logo on the cover, and I was like, "That's peculiar." The
Yeah.
picture didn't quite look like this.
Yeah, and I was a fool when I had my because I had a repro of GTA Advance for a little bit, and I was a fool because I should have looked at it and been like, "There's no way this game's rated E for everyone,"
Yeah.
because it's not. It's one of the few GBA games rated M. So, but that was my fault.
Yeah. I mean, it still works, and mine actually saves, believe it or not, which I found
Oh, that's good.
interesting. Some of
Yeah,
them
the
do.
repros have issues with saving. I don't know. I don't know why saving is difficult for certain repros, but I
Yeah.
don't
Um. So, do you have like a personal favorite GBA game?
know. Yeah, please. Are you kidding me? Fusion, baby.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Fusion, baby. Come on. It's one of my favorite games of all time.
That's a fair. Yeah.
Because I got
Fusion.
because I got this copy with the case. Like the cart and the case, I got the manual separately later for like $40. And I remember it was before Dread was announced. And after Dread, it like almost doubled in price, or I think over doubled in price.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was just holding this like ha 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 ha. I've beaten this game at this point like 3 times, and it's probably going to be like my yearly game because I think most of us have like that one game we play once a year. I think this is going to be mine
See,
now. I love playing this game so much.
that's a sensible choice. I picked Persona 4 Gold as my yearly game.
Are you fucking kidding me, dude?
My
You're
favorite game.
insane.
Can't
You're
help it.
insane.
Actually,
Come
I got to
on.
start my playthrough pretty soon.
Oh god, you're insane, man. I need to get back to it because I did fix my Vita, but like the issue, it's pretty high up there. Is that like it doesn't sit properly for some reason? even though it's screwed in and it works and everything. But I need to like get it flat so that I can get back to my eventual completed playthrough of Persona 4. But that's for another time.
Yeah, I'd say for me, my favorite GBA game. It's a little cliche, but it's kind of like up in the air between Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga and Pokemon Emerald, and that's
Yeah.
mostly. I love Pokemon Emeralds, though. I've fallen out of Pokemon. It's not really a big secret. Like, just I've lost love with that series over the years. But Emerald is the one that I can always go back to.
See, I have Sapphire, and anybody who knows me knows I'm not really a Pokemon guy, but I know a lot about the series. I think it's just because the people that surround me know a lot. And I just kind of adapt with them. But like I grew up with a copy of Red. I remember that's the one thing I wish I could go back to like tell my younger self is like that boxed pristine copy of Pokemon Red. Be like, keep that, kid. Just keep it. Don't ever get rid of it. Ever. Like never ever. And I regret that. But played a lot of Red and liked it, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing half the time. And then when we got to the GBA, I remember seeing Ruby and Sapphire everywhere, but I just never had the desire to play them, or even Emerald for that matter. But I do have Sapphire, and at some point I'll try Gen 3 because I think Gen 3 is it's probably the last gen I actually have some knowledge in. So, and then there's also the Gen 1 remakes, which are fantastic. I love Fire Red to death. I wish I didn't have to spend as much as I would need to get an official copy of it, but it is very, very good. Because that's like peak Pokemon to me. It's like Gen 1 with GBA graphics, like that's Pokemon made for me.
That was actually one of my biggest collecting stories was so like the final year, so I'd say 2019 was like the last real year before GBA games like seriously spiked. And
it was I think it was a result of COVID. Because COVID, I mean, I'm sure you would agree with me, COVID kind of wrecked the retro gaming market.
It started in 2018, but COVID like sent it through the roof.
Yeah. But the thing is, I've seen a lot of stuff go down, which I never thought would happen. So
it's starting to crash.
Like the big one for GBA is Ninja 5.0, right? Mm-hmm. And at one point, I think it was like averaging at like $600 or something. Like at its peak, it was like close to like $500. But recently, it's been going down like significantly. In fact, I've seen it on like eBay for less than $200 somehow. That's still too much for me to pull the trigger on because I've played Ninja 5.0. It is a very good game. It's not worth the price people ask for it, you know, but I think it's just one of those like hidden gem type games. And, you know, it just kind of got the internet rub. So, of course, it's like this huge thing. Like right now, the cheapest copy of it on eBay is $250. And it has a best offer. So I think if I wanted to do it, I could probably talk them down to like 200, but still I don't want to spend that on one GBA cart, man. It just feels wrong to me.
Yeah. So I was saying, when I went on my, collecting, so 2019, that was the first year I went to, Retro World. And that's like the big, retro gaming convention up in, New England. And it is literally just a giant video game swap meet, basically, like so many vendors everywhere. But at the time, I only had Emerald, Sapphire, and Leaf Green, and I really wanted to complete that Pokemon GBA collection. So I was like, my goal was like, I'm gonna hunt down Fire Red, Ruby, Mystery Dungeon,
Pinball.
I still don't have Pinball. I have Pinball.
I have Pinball. I have
Pinball on Game Boy Color. I don't have the GBA version.
Is that the giant cartridge with like the
rumble,
fucking battery and everything? Yeah,
with the rumbler.
Yeah, I have Ruby and Sapphire Pinball because actually I got Sapphire. Yeah, I got Sapphire and the Pinball for like I think the two of them was like $75, which wasn't bad considering what Sapphire goes for these days. So, you know, but of course it has an old battery and I'm sure I could send it to some guy to replace it, but yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't care. So I don't really care that much.
What was fun though was like I literally went through every GBA booth I could find and just like scoured through their collections, and I managed to find. I found Ruby, Fire Red. I found Mystery Dungeon eventually because that one's not as easy to find because it's a regular cartridge. And then
Yeah.
to tie it off, because I was also trying to finish my Zelda collection at this time. I also found Link to the Past and Minish Cap. So
Nice.
I
I have
nailed.
Minish Cap.
Minish Cap is an underrated gem that not a lot of people talk about.
Minish Cap, it's so funny. I got that for free
Oh, really? That's
because,
like how I got Emerald.
well, because a friend of mine, because when I started this, I don't know when I started GBA collecting properly. It might have been like 2019, I think. Um, and you do that thing where it's like you have friends who play video games, and you're like, hey, do you have any like GBA stuff or whatever? Like I would ask people that, and he's like, I think I got a couple things, and he was like, oh, he had a copy of Minish Cap, and he's like, I'm never gonna play this again. Here you go. And he also has a copy of Ruby, that he says he's going to give to me one day, but he is using his copy of Ruby to get a shiny Jirachi, and he's doing like the crazy roundabout way where it's like the Coliseum bonus disc, and you use Ruby and you like destroy the data, corrupt the data or whatever. Like it's like a very very low chance of you actually getting it, but that's what he's doing. And he says when he's done with that, he'll give me his copy of Ruby. So, but yeah, Minish Cap, fantastic game. I think I played it as soon as he gave it to me, and I had a great time with it. It is fantastic. I've considered replaying it, but I want to replay Wind Waker first.
Yeah, that was one of the 3 Capcom made.
Yeah, they also did the Oracle ones, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so weird that they did those. I don't know how that happened, but when you play them, it doesn't feel like Capcom made them. They just feel
No.
like Zelda games.
No, they're really good. Like it's not a secret. I wasn't a Zelda fan growing up. I only got into
I'm
Zelda.
still not a Zelda fan.
I appreciate the franchise, but I'm not like a mega fan by any means.
Yeah, the way some people are about Zelda just really like kind of throws me off, I guess, because I didn't have any of the older Zeldas. Like the first time I ever played Zelda was the collector's edition for GameCube that was like bundled in with it. And I played those and I was like, these are okay. Zelda 1, 2, Ocarina, and Majora. I was like, they're all fine. They didn't do much for me. But the Wind Waker demo I loved to pieces, and I still love Wind Waker. Like Wind Waker, I think I just love it because it's like a pirate game and you can sail around and shit. That's probably why I like it so much. Because I've played a handful of the other Zeldas, Breath of the Wild, all that. I have Tears of the Kingdom down there, and it's just they just don't do that much for me. I don't know what it is. I should like it, but I don't. I like Metroid more. I've always been more of a Metroid guy.
For me, the one that really got me was Link Between Worlds on 3DS.
I still need to play that. That game is great.
It's fun. It's honestly, to me, it's like the best classic style Zelda. That one just sucked me in though, and like it got me to actually play the rest of the series. I like Majora's Mask. Like, I have a weird appreciation for that one nowadays.
Yeah, Majora. It's like I have issues with that game, but I don't really go into the details of those just because it's a lot. Fine. But yeah, I remember in the collector's edition of the 4, that was probably the one I liked the most.
It's definitely the most
so weird,
the most experimental one, that's for sure.
Yeah, like the creepy mask salesman, and it's like it was just weird, and they'll never do it again.
Nope, probably not. So going back to GBA now, the GBA had a lot of just bizarre, like experimental games that like kind of came and went on the GBA. Like
it was an experimental system, but like not in a mainstream accepted way like the DS. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the DS, people did so many really creative and interesting things with the Nintendo DS. And I eventually gave in and got a DS and grew to like it. And I have a small stack of DS games like right there. Big Professor Layton fan. But but yeah, the GBA, you could tell like with say WarioWare Twisted, with Drill Dozer, with Yoshi's Topsy Turvy, with Boktai, which we'll probably bring up as well, the solar cartridge. Like there's a lot of weird stuff they're trying to do with like cartridges and trying to experiment. But even yeah, just like standard games, quote unquote, there was a lot of just weird stuff on here, like Urban Yeti. Like what
Yep.
the fuck is that game? Like why is it so expensive? What is this? I still don't know what this is.
I always remember there was a Crazy Taxi on GBA that was surprisingly pretty. I mean,
Oh
for
yeah.
for a Crazy Taxi on GBA, I thought it was pretty good.
It was definitely that era where you were getting a lot of like console ports, quote unquote,
Hmm.
but they were essentially like demakes, where you'd have like a company make just some random thing. Like I remember SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, for example. You play the GameCube version and it's like that really cool 3D collectathon platformer, and then it's like you get the GBA version and it's just like a 2D side scroller,
Yeah.
essentially. It's a solid one for what it is, but it was just that era where if you get the GBA version, it'd be completely different. Though there are a couple attempts at like direct ports, and I'm not talking like Super Nintendo, I'm talking like PS1 games. Like there's a couple of like direct PS1 ports on here. There's
Need for
Broken
Speed
Sword.
Need for Speed Underground 2 was ambitious. I remember that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't have that one. I don't, or maybe I do. I don't know. I have like 250 GBA games at this point. So it's like I can't always remember in my head what I have and what I don't have. But I remember, let's see, Medal of Honor Underground,
Hmm.
terrible port, but it's
Yep.
trying to be like a direct PS1 port of like the first person shooter, and it is bad. But then they made Medal of Honor Infiltrator, which is more of a like top down, like made for GBA kind of shooter, and it is honestly a really, really like underrated gem on the GBA, but it is very hard.
Another good one is Duke Nukem Advance, which is a completely
Yeah,
original. It's a completely original Duke game, but it's a very good. It's like a Doom style Duke Nukem, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, and it's based off of like the 3D engine and does a pretty decent job with it. I mentioned Doom 1 and Doom 2. The ports on there are surprisingly really competent. There's a Broken Sword, like the first Broken Sword got a GBA port. And I mean, it's a point and click game on the GBA, but it works pretty well for what it is. Um, there's a couple of other like more direct like PS1 ports on here, which is very like people were being very ambitious with the GBA, trying to push it as far as they could. And you got some pretty interesting results. They weren't always great, but you got a lot of interesting results. But
There was two Klonoa games that were really solid.
oh yeah, I have the first one and it is amazing. It's probably not my favorite Klonoa, but it's up there. I don't have Klonoa 2. That one's really, really pricey. But yeah, you have the Klonoa stuff. You have the Pac-Man World games. Both of them got GBA versions. Like the first one is essentially like a sort of abridged version of the PS1 original. And then Pac-Man World 2 just takes Pac-Man World 2 and turns into a 2D side scroller. But they keep all the control stuff, but they use like sprite art, and
Hmm.
it looks really nice as well. In fact, there
Crash.
was a hint.
I was going to say Crash and Spyro had very good transitions onto GBA.
My favorite Crash Bandicoot game is still Crash Bandicoot: The Huge Adventure
That is a
on
very good
GBA.
game.
I love
Even if
that game.
even if the final boss is like this like amalgamation of all the bosses, that's like this like abomination that I never want to see again in my
Yeah,
life.
yeah. And then the Spyro games, they were trying to be like that isometric, like kind of 3D perspective, and they're okay.
Yeah,
But
Digital
then
Eclipse made those. They're pretty for what they are. I mean, they're pretty good.
they're not bad. And then they did the Crash and Spyro like swap universe
Oh, those
thing.
are terrible. I
Those are
hate
very
those games.
bad. And that, but I think what's even worse is Spyro, was it Shadow Legacy on the DS, which is just like a Spyro RPG,
Oh yeah, that was
but
made by the same studio that made The Sims, The Sims 2 for. Um,
yeah, yeah, that game is. A friend of mine wanted me to play it because he said it was really bad, and I played it, and I'm like, this is just like a GBA Spyro game, but they're like, oh, it's on the DS. We have to do something different. Give it XP,
Yep.
level RPG, whatever. Right?
That's the last classic Spyro game too, which is really sad.
That is very weird because it's not great.
Nope.
But I like the Legend of Spyro games, but that's a whole nother thing. There's didn't two of them get GBA ports?
Yes, and they're
Okay, and one of
both.
them's a Metroidvania. At least that's
Yeah,
what I've been told.
the second one.
Yeah. I haven't hunted those down yet because there's a handful of Metroidvanias on here as well, outside of the Metroids and the Castlevanias, which both series were very well represented on here.
Did
You
you ever
have
play
game.
that Nightmare Before Christmas
I
game that they
I don't have that yet. I've heard that there's two like Shaman King Metroidvanias because there's 4 Shaman King games on GBA. 2 of them are Metroidvanias and the other 2 are RPGs. And I bought one of them thinking it was the Metroidvania, but it wasn't. It was the RPG, and the RPGs. But there's also Samurai Jack, the Amulet of Time, which is okay. It's a little slow, but it's not bad. There might be a couple of others, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But yeah, there's a handful of like genuine Metroidvanias on here. I mean, this is kind of like the perfect system for that type of game. So,
Kirby and the Amazing Mirror was kind of Metroidvania.
oh yeah, I love that game. I really need to sit down and like play that whole thing because it is very good, but it is confusing because the map system isn't very good. The rest of the game is amazing.
For GBA now, because it's I'm not backwards compatible. It's region free. Did you do any import collecting?
I have one Japanese GBA game. Kulurin, if I'm saying that correctly. Inbox and everything. Really nice art. Very cheap. And what's cool about this game is that you don't really need to worry about the menus because it's a puzzle game. It's on the NSO, so you can play it there. And yeah, it's really cool. But I don't really buy like Japanese import GBA games. I mean, I've thought about one of these days I will probably do that for Mother 3, like just to have it,
Yeah,
because I do because
so you don't feel bad about owning the translation.
Well, because there's the red spine. If you see that red spine back there,
Yep.
if I can point, that's the copy. But yeah, that's probably the one I would go for. Maybe the first Phoenix Wright, because the first Phoenix Wright was on GBA, which a lot of people forget about. The Starfy games, because Starfy's great. I want to
get.
Yeah, because they made 3 of them for the GBA before they made a DS one over here, which is weird to me.
5th one, I believe, over here, because I think they made one on DS, and then the second one they made came out over here.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. And I have the DS one. It's solid.
It's good. It's Kirby underwater, but it's still fun.
Yeah, the one Japanese GBA game I should probably go out of my way to get for the collection is that Dragon Quest Caravan of Hearts thing. Yeah, I don't even know what it is.
There's also the first Slime game was on GBA as well.
Oh, really? I thought the only Slime was the DS one.
No, it has a that's actually the second game in the series, I found out. It's one of the few loose imports I own. I was going to say, for imports, I actually have all 3 Phoenix Wrights.
Nice.
Just because they were cheap, and I was like, these are just kind of cool to have. Just because it's funny that those games were out way before we ever got them with the DS remakes.
Oh yeah,
ports, I guess. I also have the only other boxed import GBA game I have is there was an Inuyasha board game RPG, and I only own that because I wanted to collect. I wanted complete copies of all the Inuyasha games, so that was like the last one I needed. It's not good, but it's got pretty box art. So
I don't know why you do that to yourself.
Because Inuyasha is my favorite anime.
You don't want my opinion on Inuyasha, then.
That's fine.
It's not the worst. I can safely say that.
That's fair. Yeah. Other than that, though, I do want to get a copy of Mother 3 at some point, and then the Starfy games, like you said, those are Those are
Yeah.
definites I want to find at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Mother 3 is the holy grail of this system. Would you agree with that?
It is one of my favorite games on it for sure.
Yeah. It's pretty fantastic. But there's always those really funny articles. It's usually around the Mother series where it's like giant Mother 3 fan gets the or no, it's like a bit the internet's biggest Earthbound fan finally gets to play it. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um Mother 3 is definitely, I think, one of those games that has like that huge cult following where there's probably a good chunk of people who've never really even played it. You know, they've just seen footage of it or just know that it's a sort of a lost game. And then they just get really excited about that kind of.
Mm.
But I've played a good chunk of the game. I mean, I can show you my save file, and it is really, really, really good. It's some fantastic emotional storytelling. I like how it's set in the same town, but you see all the changes that go on
Yep.
within it. A lot of dark stuff happens. A lot of
Get ready to
kind of fucked up shit happens
ready to get punched in the nuts repeatedly during this game.
in more ways than one. Yeah, it's very rough in that regard, but it handles it all, I think, very, very well. Because I think it's just Shigesato Itoi, he kind of knows what he's going for when it comes to the story he wants to tell. It's kind of the same with Earthbound. Like Earthbound is cryptic, but
Yes.
you know, if you look hard enough, you can kind of figure out what he's trying to say with it, you know. But and he kind of hides sort of the main idea behind all of the like the humor that he presents, like really, really good humor and sort of his kind of obsession with American culture, but his obsession with it is done in a analytical way, you know, whereas I think a lot of Americans obsessed with, say, Japanese culture do not approach it from that perspective.
No, that's true. Very true. Um, yeah, I think the only other Japanese game that I'd like to own is Fire Emblem, the one that we didn't get over here.
Binding Blade, is that the one?
It's either Binding Blade or Blazing Blade. I always mix it's the one with Roy. I know that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have one of the Fire Emblems, Sacred Stones. That's the one I have. It's very good, but Fire Emblem games are tough.
Yeah. So another collecting thing. Has there ever been one game that you had to have like in the original box just for collector reasons?
Um, yeah, let me look at my boxes. Um, the one that there's not really one I was like I had to go out of my way to get the box for. I mean, if it was one, it would be like say a Mother 3, but the one I didn't pass up when I saw it sealed in box was that Incredible Hulk game because I had it as
Okay.
a kid and I had the box as a kid. I kept it for some reason. So maybe for like nostalgia's sake, I guess that's a good choice. And there's a handful of games I have like in those cases, but you know, it's a lot to try to get them for every game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say Incredible Hulk, I guess, but also I have Final Fantasy Tactics in box, um, Advanced Guardian Heroes, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, some of the Lord of the Rings games, Broken Sword, Baseball Advance. That might be my favorite baseball game ever. Like it's so bare bones, but
Yeah.
it's just like in terms of modes, but it's just very, very well done. And it's so easy to play like a season. I have a season going in that, you know,
Hmm.
even right now. Um, but then I'll get weird ones like Shamu's Deep Sea Adventures. Like I found
Oh
that in
yeah.
box for like $5. And I was like, yeah, why not? You know,
So
just throw that in the collection.
for me, so for the most part, like most of my boxed games, I've just either lucked into them or they weren't that expensive. The one that I went out of the way to get was Lunar Legend. And that was mostly just
Ooh.
because I wanted a complete boxed Lunar set.
Yeah. How much did
It
that run
only
you?
ended, it was like $60. This was 2019, so it was probably it was before the spikes really happened.
Yeah. Cause I think when I started collecting in 2019, certain things I was able to get for decent prices, like say Tactics and you know some of those games. But But yeah, I know when the pandemic hit, things just got really bad. Really bad. Just kind of in general for
Yeah.
like retro collecting. But I think things are getting better, or at least things are starting to like even out,
Mm.
because there are certain like say like NES games, for example, like the price they are now is the price they're just going to be.
Yeah,
Like
those
that,
have
that market has been settled for years now.
yeah,
But
they've fallen out of favor. The big one right now is GameCube is the big
GameCube,
crazy.
yeah,
N64 is starting to fall off a little.
yeah, because certain ones it's just like because those markets haven't been set yet. You know what I mean? Like with GBA, we're kind of seeing that market kind of figure itself out. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And GameCube, I'm assuming eventually GameCube games will come down because some of them are just ridiculous prices.
Yeah.
But we never know. And it'll be interesting to see like in a couple years when like 360, PS3, and Wii start getting there. Because I think they're starting to develop a collector's market, but they're not quite there yet. Like
It's
I think
weird.
it needs another like 3 to 5 years, I think.
It's weird. Like I'm already seeing it with PS3 and Wii. 360 is like weird. It's like I mean, there's a few outlying games, but like for the most part, they're like dirt cheap still.
Oh yeah. But I think it's just because there were so many like
Oh yeah,
360
they
games
were
were
so
produced en
heavily
masse.
produced.
Yeah. Like I have like I think right now probably the most expensive 360 game is NCAA football 14, I think.
Oh yeah, and that's like a special one. Like there's a reason why it's expensive.
Yeah, or even like F1 2013. Just random things like that. But I do have one of the pricier ones, Marvel Ultimate Alliance Gold.
Hmm.
I did bite the bullet on that one. I don't have El Chavo cart. I don't think I'll ever grab that because I'm a little bit of a 360 collector, but not to the same degree.
According to price charting, my most valuable 360 game is Bullet Witch, and I don't know how I feel about that. A
that's
whopping
a
$42.
that's a game.
It's like poor man's Bayonetta. That's
Yeah, and Bayonetta wasn't even a thing yet.
nope. I mean, hey, he later went on to make Nier, so I'll give him that.
We all go downhill, don't we? No, I'm just being cheeky.
Well, apparently
I'm trying.
the Dreamcast collection's valuable too, apparently.
Oh yeah, because those have been delisted.
True.
Those are delisted like a long time ago.
Uh,
Let's see. The most expensive 360 game I have, he says, looking at his app. Well, I just told you Marvel Ultimate Alliance Gold, but also I have Operation Darkness, which is like an $80 game. 50 Cent Blood on the Sand,
Yep.
which I really want to play soon. I have the first Saw game, Silent Hill Downpour, Peter Jackson's King Kong, Splatterhouse, The Legend of Spyro on 360s, a bit pricey, but most of these,
Yeah.
when I say pricey, they hover around like the $40, $50 mark. Like I
Yeah.
only have 3 games that are above like $60 as far as like what they're worth.
Yeah. Even like the games that you'd think would be like more on the expensive side, like the RPGs, like Blue Dragon or Lost Odyssey. Shameless plug to Rick, by the way. But yeah, like even those are all like $20 at most. Like they're not really that
Yeah.
expensive.
I think I spent 30 on each. And that
Mhm.
was for like really nice, clean copies.
Yeah. Going back to a GBA now, did you ever buy like a game or like a boxed copy of something, not because you really wanted it, just because you saw it and you were like, that's dumb, I need it?
Yes. Are you fucking kidding me? That's part of the fun of collecting is going to like the physical stores and just looking at what they have and seeing like fucking what yes, please, right? And I mean if I pulled out my collection, I could probably name like quite a few of those. But I know one game I got because it was so wacky, but I heard it was good, was Rescue Hero Billy Blazes,
Hmm.
which is a made by Way Forward, which is probably why I bought it. And it was like based on like an old like toy line or like a TV line of like it was like Tonka, like trying to have
Oh,
like
I
like
have a Rescue Heroes game for Game Boy Color, so I think I know what
yeah,
you're talking about.
yeah. And this one is specifically about Billy Blazes, who's the fireman, and you just do these like 2D platforming sections where you or levels where you just douse fires with water, and it's really good. Like it's really well made. And I don't know, I think I like firefighter 2D games because there's also that Super Nintendo Fireman game that's
Mm.
really good. But then there's also like Gumby versus the Astrobots, which
Hell yeah.
the only reason I bought that was I think it was Metal Jesus. Had one of his GBA videos talked about that game, and I played it. I beat it. It's really good. It's way better than the Gumby game deserves to be. But
I think
there's other random shit like that. Like,
I think the
yeah,
dumbest game I ever bought was I went into a retro game store and I just like was looking at the back shelf, and this wasn't like a super organized store. They just kind of had shit everywhere. But I
yeah.
remember looking in the back and just staring at me was a pristine copy of Sonic Genesis just chilling on the shelf, locked and everything, like Sonic's
I
smug
still
ass
don't have
face.
that. I still don't have that.
And for shits and giggles, I just asked the guy, like, how much for Sonic Genesis? And he looks at it and he just goes, I'll give you $2. He's like, $2. And I'm like, sure, why not?
Oh yeah, for $2. Yeah, because it's now like $40.
Yeah, it's gone up quite a bit. This was
Yeah.
back in this was like 2015, I want to say. So this is when no one cared.
Oh yeah,
Um,
because I really wish I GBA collected in like the early 2010s because I definitely would have had the money to do it. Because I've seen so many like sealed GBA games that people are flogging on eBay for like $50, and on there it says like on sale $2, like right on there, and it's like, damn, that was the time to like just go in and be like I'll take all of them, like $30, everything. Here you go.
Yard
That would have
sales
been.
were like the best.
Oh yeah, yeah. That
Because
that would have been the time.
you'd find that one. I used to do them all the time back in the day, and you'd find like that one guy that kept all of his boxes for whatever reason, and it's like a stack, like $1 each, and he's like, yeah, I don't want them, just $1 each, and I'm like, cool, like why
Like
not?
like he cared enough to keep all the boxes, but not enough to just keep them.
Yeah,
You know.
he doesn't want them in his house anymore. That's
Yeah. But it's just like the thought, like retro gaming, like just the whole idea has changed so much, because I think you remember there was a time where it's like it just wasn't really a thing,
no,
you know.
there was like weirdos like me who were like obsessed with it, but no one else cared, and
Yeah, and now it's
uh,
become very big,
you know what?
very
Now
very big.
I get people asking me for advice online. I'm like, go away. Like I don't like no. Like
Like what do they look for? Like advice? Like you're just spending money. Like
I
what
know.
the fuck you need advice on that for?
I always, whenever someone asks me for advice for getting into collecting, my usual response is just don't, and then that's it.
I always say like, well, know what you're getting into. Like
Well, yeah.
if people want genuine advice on collecting, like know the systems that you want to collect for, and then learn that system's library and what's pricey and what's not, and you get like a rough idea of how much money you're going to spend, and then just do it, you know? And it's fun. Like it is a fun thing to do because you get a lot of weird experiences and stories out of it, and like from like eBay sellers and like retro stores and just like random people who bring things up to you. Like it is a very interesting hobby to have, in fact, I forget, there was one podcast I was listening to where this guy said that he doesn't collect video games because he's like, that's a separate hobby from playing video games. And he's 100% right. They are two completely different hobbies. But but it's fun for what it is, and really the only system I collect for is the Game Boy Advance. Just because I think I have that strong nostalgia connection to it. The market isn't that bad for it. And, it's just fun to be like that guy when I go in the store and people are like, oh, he's going to go through the GBA games. We know it because he's been in here before, because when GameStop still had like GameCube games for dirt cheap, I was that guy like cleaning them out because there was a time where I was collecting GameCube games. And at one point I had like 65% of the North American library. Do I regret selling most of that? You're damn right I do. I wish I still had all those games.
Did I ever
It
tell you about
happens.
my Vita road trip?
You what, to get the Vita?
No. So okay, I told this on the last episode, but I'll tell it again. So when the Vita got discontinued and GameStop's basically clearance sold pretty much all their Vita stuff like right away. I went on a cross Massachusetts road trip to every GameStop I could find in the area, and I just cleaned out their Vita sections of all the stuff I didn't have. It was like it was like a day trip. I ended up going to like 12 different GameStops across Massachusetts, and half my Vita library came from that trip alone. It was insane how they were just fire selling that stuff.
You're probably sitting on a gold mine with all that Vita stuff.
Um, so that was like the benefit of being a Vita early adopter and someone who like really was behind Vita, even though it was kind of a lost cause. Because I had a ton of those games like day one, and I mostly just picked up all the obscure RPGs that no one cared about at the time.
Do you have the Binding of Isaac Rebirth on Vita?
I don't have that one.
Okay, because apparently it's worth like $4,000.
See, that's probably one of those games I passed on at the time because I had other versions of it to play and I didn't think I needed it.
I get the sense it might just be like super rare, that version. You
That's
know what I
probably
mean?
it. It's probably like the empty case Minecraft case that you can get.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, then there's like V. How do you pronounce this game? It has a bunch of V's in it.
I think it's just VVV.
Yeah, that one's like $1,000. Like Jesus Christ.
Those limited run indie games.
Oh,
that
that's probably what they are. Yeah.
So actually, speaking of somewhat limited stuff and GBA, so there was that big announcement that the Lost Shantae games coming out on GBA. What's your thoughts on like new GBA games being made?
Well, they happen. You know, homebrew people do them all the time and all that. And I'm glad it keeps the system alive. You know, I always get a kick out of that, but it is very niche, a very niche thing to do. Because I remember when that got announced, I was like, oh, it's gonna come to modern consoles as well. And everyone's like,
Well,
but
yeah,
they didn't say it was. They never and that's like, guys, you really think they're gonna do all that work and not say, oh, it's
make
coming to
it this.
Switch and PC as well? Like a fucking course it is. And then at the indie world, they were like, oh yeah, it's coming to Switch. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. Like we all knew it was gonna happen. And
They're not gonna.
I'll probably get it on there. I do not see myself buying the GBA version. It would be cute to have because I could buy it and then probably sell it for like $10,000 when I die. But like, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Because then it's like, because then I'm treating it as like an investment.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to treat retro video games as like an investment. You know, I buy these
See,
games because I want them. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
See, when I saw that announcement, I was a little confused because I, for the longest time, thought that the Lost GBA game just got basically remade into Risky's Revenge.
Oh, I knew it wasn't because I know.
I always thought that. I just thought that they had just took that project and just moved on to ESI. I didn't realize there was this lost game that was just.
Oh yeah, because I think it was during the GBA days they were trying to make a game. And the thing is, the development wasn't the problem. The publishing was the problem. They couldn't get a publisher
Yeah.
because Capcom published the first one, but they weren't on board for the second one because it didn't sell. And
Yeah.
then they tried passing the game on to any company, and they all said no because Shantae just didn't sell, and they weren't willing to take a risk on it for some reason. So it just
That's like
so it got shelved. And then when the DSiWare came around and WayForward had a bit more money to do self-publishing, they're like, oh, we should make a Shantae game for this. And they made a brand new one in Risky's Revenge.
okay. I was always under the impression that Risky's Revenge was like the remains of that lost game, but
No.
I guess I was
No,
wrong.
Risky's Revenge was very much its own thing.
It'll be
And then
cool though.
Shantae's
Just,
become what it is.
yeah, now it's one of the biggest series out there, and WayForward's swimming in it right now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Millions of dollars. I don't know about that.
No,
It's
they're
still
not.
it's still a niche franchise.
They're not constantly at risk of dying anymore, so that's a good sign.
No, which is very good. What's funny is do you know Dre from Fine Time?
Oh yeah, I talked to Dre.
Yeah,
all the time.
he hates WayForward with a passion. And I don't get it. Like, yeah, not every game they make is a gem, but like I like them.
I love I
it,
love
it,
Dre's takes because sometimes they're just so outlandish, but at the same time, after like listening to their show, I understand him to a degree now, and I'm like, I get where he's coming from.
yeah, yeah. I think he's just naturally a contrarian kind of guy, you know.
I mean,
Which to be
he
well,
changed my opinion on Mega Man and Bass. So
yeah. Well, I when I did the Sonic Superstars video with him or the podcast with him, I like said to him like, "You're just a contrarian." He's like, "Yeah, I know."
yeah,
So he admitted to it. So
yeah.
it all comes back around.
Another series that we didn't really bring up is Golden Sun. That was a huge
Oh
GBA
yeah.
series.
What the fuck is wrong with me? God damn it. Stupid shithead. Stupid shithead me. I have both
Oh,
in
damn,
custom
nice,
game cases, and both of them have the manuals. And the
nice.
first, and yeah, both of them have the manuals. And then the first one, I got the map. God damn it. I
Nice.
have the map in the back that, you unfold the whole thing. And I bought it used. So, like, there's like writing on it and everything. So, like, oh, I'm supposed to go here or do this thing or whatever, right? Because it has you like fill in on the bottom, like later
Yeah,
areas of the game. Dude, I fucking love Golden Sun. Are you kidding me?
it's one of the best RPGs on the system, especially an
Yeah, it really
original
is.
RPG.
Oh yeah, it was made by
Camelot.
Camelot, who originally made all the Shining Force games. Because there's the Shining Soul games on GBA, which are I don't have them; they're expensive, but
Camelot
they're
did
like
not make those, though, I believe.
no, they didn't because they were buddy buddy with Nintendo at that point. But the Shining Soul games are more like action RPGs. They're kind of like the last really good Shining games. Some of the PS2 ones are okay. Um, but yeah, they went ahead and made. Oh, and there's also the remake of Shining Force 1 on the GBA,
Yep.
which I could do a solo show on that because I have some opinions about that remake, but that's too much. So
They
yeah,
also had their very brief like partnership with Sony that a lot of people don't remember.
Oh yeah, because they did that golf game for PS2, right?
They made the first Hot Shots Golf before Clap Hands made the rest of the series.
That's right. That's right. You're correct. But then also with Golden Sun, people tend to forget the
Yep, the
DS Golden
DS.
Sun, which is not good, which is a shame,
Yeah,
but it's not good.
It's a very average RPG. It's
Yeah.
better than that Lunar game that doesn't exist on DS. So,
But yes, I have the entire Golden Sun trilogy, and it feels good because I really like these games. They're fantastic. In fact, I beat Golden Sun, the first one. It was like a year. It was the last time I visited my sister and her family down in Georgia. Like we took the plane. I took my GBA SP and Golden Sun. That was the only game I took because I'm like, well, I might as well do like a big RPG. And any free time I got, I just sat there and played it. And it was love that game so much. So good. You're making me want to play it again. God damn it.
so the whole reason I brought up there's the Sony period is because there's kind of like the spiritual predecessor to Golden Sun in a lot of ways, Beyond the Beyond. Anyone remembers that
Oh
game?
yeah, I've heard about that game.
It's a very not bad but not amazing turn-based RPG on PlayStation.
Yeah. Camelot have done a lot of interesting stuff.
Now they're just making golf and tennis games forever.
Yeah, and they're not good anymore because they used to be. Yeah, because Shining Wisdom was the first game they made as like Camelot because they were like Sonic Software Planning and did all the Shining games on the before that. Yeah, and then they did Everybody's Golf on the PlayStation, and then they did they did the Mario Golf and Mario Tennis RPGs on Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance, which are really good.
Some too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Mario Golf Advance Tour is really good. I love that.
I love
game.
those games because they clearly run off of the Golden Sun engine, and it's great.
Yeah, because the humans are the exact same character models. Yeah, I love that. And they do the same thing where it's like they'll have like the little bubble that shows like the emotion that they're doing, or like they always their bodies just shake. They do this.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell is that? Are they all having seizures? It's weird. Oh yeah, they did We Love Golf for the Wii as well. That's
Oh
right.
yeah, that other golf
Yeah.
game that they made.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird there wasn't an original Mario Golf for Wii. That's so
Yeah,
weird
it
to
is
me.
actually pretty weird. It's funny to me because they made Hot Shots Golf, but like everything they arguably made the least memorable Hot Shots Golf because Clap Hands like took that series and made it its own very quickly after.
Yeah. Yeah, they were more made for the Mario Golf stuff, but then like Mario Golf Super Rush on Switch is uh
Yeah.
I have uh, so I've heard rumors for a while that Camelot were doing something with Golden Sun. I don't know how truthful that is. I mean, if they were remaking the GBA Golden Sun from the ground up, dude, I would you'd probably hear me screaming from Massachusetts, man. I would be so happy.
Yeah.
And also they made Waluigi
Yes, they
because he
did.
first appeared in Mario Tennis, which was made
Their
by
great
them.
their greatest contribution to gaming.
Their greatest contribution, the culture.
Yes.
All right, culture.
That's why Nintendo hates them because they didn't make them.
Yeah, I think that's why. Even though Miyamoto suggested it to him.
I know. All because he needed a tennis partner. Just put him in a Wario game. Just do it.
Wario and Waluigi. There we go.
Wario and Waluigi partners in crime.
Now we're talking. Yes, and it's like a heist game. It's like Payday or something.
I'd buy it.
I would.
So we're coming up towards the right around the 2 hour mark. So I guess now final question I wanted to ask is like, what would you say is like the one GBA game you don't own yet that you like? That's like, I guess like you're like white whale, I guess, for the collection.
Well, I mean, the easiest answer would be Ninja 5.0 because it's like the big boy one. But it's one of those I don't think I will ever own an official copy of just because it's way too expensive and I just don't really want to pay that kind of money for it. I think probably my white whale, if I had to pick one, is Drill Dozer because that's one that I would spend the money on just because it's such a wacky game and it's a tolerable price. You know, like I'm sure if I found the right eBay seller, I could talk them down to a pretty decent price. But that's a good big one for me. Fire Red is another one because I'd love to own an official copy of that. One I didn't get and I regret not getting because I could have got it for a really good price is Metal Slug Advance because that game is really good. Because of course I've emulated some of these games because GBA emulation is super easy.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that game is also fantastic. There's like Jet Grind Radio, as I mentioned, the Shining Soul games. Like, there's just like, I'd love to own every North American Game Boy Advance game, which is a lot of games. That's like roughly 1,000 games, but it's like a long-term kind of project thing. It's like every once in a while I'll get into bursts and buy a bunch of GBA games, and then I just won't for months on end. So it's one of those I don't make it like a short-term habit that I have to do. It's just every once in a while I get the itch, I scratch it, and I kind of move on. But
Yeah.
the one game, but probably the biggest one that I don't have that I want is Drill Dozer. So because I don't want to emulate that, I want to play it and get the genuine experience of that one. So what would be yours, Billy? It's not
For
it's
me,
not it's not Night Trap, is it?
no, I on 3DO. I'm good. All is right in the world there. No, for me, it is actually, we mentioned them earlier, the two Boktai games. I miss those.
Oh
Back in
yeah, and they
the
are
good old,
pricey these days.
they are good old Kojima's Touch Grass, the video game.
That's a way to put it.
It's go outside the video game. Like,
For sure.
I had a
Those games are
chance.
cool, and I think like emulation wise, they've like emulators have figured out a way to simulate that stuff. I think.
They have, and it makes the game completely trivial in a lot of ways. But
Yeah, because it's super easy now.
there was a third one too that I recently found out about from another thing that me and you might have been involved in. Shameless plug to Aaron. But
He doesn't
yeah,
deserve a plug. I don't know why I said that.
we
I love
Aaron.
Aaron. Oh yeah. I think he'd appreciate the humor.
Yeah. No, those are so I had the shot to get them and I passed on it. I think to buy some Dreamcast game or something at the time. And now they're stupid expensive and I regret it. It's it's such a cool idea, like a solar panel in a GBA game. Like only
Yeah.
Kojima would think of that.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And from what I've heard, it is really cool, but
Hmm.
it's just one of those games that like I want to play like the real version of it, but I don't know if I'll ever get to that point in my life just because it's so expensive and it's just really not worth it, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, it's unfortunate. The GBA is like an endless wealth of just like so many games that like you wouldn't expect to be good, but
Oh
they're
yeah, it
surprisingly
is.
decent.
Oh yeah, like it is like we only really scratched the surface. Like there's so many weird, interesting like ports on here and like so many like interesting like new ideas. Like I never talked about like Pinball of the Dead, which is fantastic. Scourge Hive, which is like a really cool like Metroid type game. Um and
Saber
then
Wolf's a really cool rare game.
Saber Max Payne, the port of Max
Max
Payne on GBA is really good. Gunstar Superheroes, like
Simpsons
Sigma
Road
Star
Rage is way
Simpson.
better than it has any right to be.
It yes, it's probably like the fourth best Simpsons game, really, because there's Hit and Run, the arcade game, the movie
The,
game, and then the GBA version of Road Rage, not the console version. The console
the
version's bad.
console the console version is just Crazy Taxi, but like
Yeah,
not as
in an illegal way because they
yeah.
got sued over it.
Yeah, they got sued ironically, just a little tangent here. They got sued for it. Sega won, and all that Sega did was just cause games to get better because of this. Because
That's why Hit and Run got made.
well, there's that, but also because Sega sued them, basically Sega's whole crux on how they won their case was the crux of their whole legal case was the little arrow at the top of the screen that pointed where to go. That was they technically created for Crazy Taxi, and that was their intellectual property. And
That's amazing.
they won the case based off of that alone. So other developers could no longer use the little arrow. So instead, they just created the mini map, but just made it better. It was like, thanks
Oh
Sega,
yeah,
you made games better.
Minimap all the way. So
Yeah.
yeah, God, there's so many GBA games, it's ridiculous, and so many like genuinely good games. We didn't even talk about the video carts, man.
Oh yeah, got to go fast. Got to go faster, faster,
The
faster.
the 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 Shrek Shark Tale one, like they fit 2 full-length movies on one video cart. That is insane.
Those things look so. So I used to have that one, and oh
Yeah,
my
it's
god,
it's pricey now. It's
it's
worth a lot of money
yeah,
now.
I don't know what I had a bunch of those, and they're all gone. Who knows what happened to them? I remember that the Shrek and Shark Tale combined one though, because like it looked like shit. Like it was
Oh
like
yeah,
because you
bad.
could get Shrek and Shrek Tale separately as well, but they also had the combo
Yeah,
card, and the separate ones they didn't look good, but they looked at least for
they
child
look
brain at the time it was fine.
they look like 2006 YouTube,
Yeah,
like
God,
144p era, you know.
that combo card though. Oh my god, like
Yeah, yeah.
it's like
But
woof.
we put up with it. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
God, fuck, we didn't even talk about like the Mega Man Zero series.
I
Sorry,
know.
Chris, because he loves those games.
See, the
There's
thing
like
is,
the TMNT game, which is really good. And
if this was just a GBA discussion, we probably would have covered more because I was trying to keep it in the collecting realm. We're a
yeah,
bit
for
more
sure.
restricted. When we do a 3DO like side episode, we'll have to do GBA at some point.
Oh God, yes. Oh yeah, dude, I could talk about GBA all day. There's so many cool things on here.
I guess to wrap it up, we should probably so I normally have my guests do plugs, but in this case, I'd be plugging my own show and I don't want to be that pretentious. So I figure now we could probably just announce 3DO is coming back.
Oh yeah.
It's probably already back by the time this comes out. And I think we had kind of talked about format change a little bit where we'll do our normal like 3DO game episodes, 3DO topics, but we're also going to kind of alternate with some side episodes just to keep things because it's really hard to get like a 3DO game done in a week and like we have other things we got to work on.
Yeah,
So
it was getting quite a bit with that, and And I think, yeah, probably just for like our sanity's sake and maybe for the viewers' sake, we can, kind of mix it up because like we could do weeks where it's like, oh, we talk about this 3DO game. And then like maybe in the off weeks, we could do like a 3DO topic or talk about some random stuff or like maybe do an episode on the Game Awards or something if we
Yeah.
want to, if something crazy happens that's worth talking about, that kind of stuff.
Or like in case like say one of us gets busy again or something, we can do a side thing that it won't be super demanding and like we can at least keep the show going. So
exactly. But stuff that like, but we're still going to do 3DO stuff. Like I still have that stack over there that I want to get to. The big one I want to tackle is Lucien's Quest, which that'll probably be a next year thing. But
yeah.
we gotta talk about that one. We just have to. But yeah,
we're still gonna do Alone in the Dark as our comeback game because we promised it back in October. So.
Yeah, I downloaded it on my PC. I've played a bit of it. I'll reserve opinion for now. Yeah. I'll reserve opinion.
You'll be hearing very shortly on that. So
yes, you will. If anyone's interested, I'm there. Somebody is.
Yeah. I mean, Alone in the Dark's a well-known series, so
yeah.
But yeah, so I guess to wrap it up, thanks, dude, for doing this, helping me get through my content shortage.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. And
it's always good being here.
Yep. And next time you see us, it'll be on 3DO. But until then, guys, this has been the Gaming Collecting Podcast. Gaming Collecting Podcast can be found on all your major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. If you want to follow our link sheet, they're at linktree/thebarbergames. And if you'd like, you can join the G&C Podcast Discord server where you can find all your information on gaming and collecting, the 3DO experience, or Geek Addicts. We also can talk gaming, anime, or whatever. It's a fun, safe spot for everybody. And with that, guys, we will see you all next time.
Bye-bye.